Hi there, it's Asia, and today I've prepared for you a full IELTS academic writing task 1 essay, and I'll explain you how you should write it. This task has 3 pie charts, which is quite common in IELTS today. And if after watching this lesson you feel like you want to learn all my technique and how to write each type of task 1 essay, my online course will be linked in the description box below. And now, let's get started. Here is our task. The charts below show the average consumption of 3 nutrients by adults in the UK. All of these nutrients may be unhealthy if eaten too much. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. And we have the title of our charts. Daily consumption of sodium, saturated fat and added sugar by adults in the UK. And we can see that the first chart shows sodium, the second one is about saturated fat, and the last one is about added sugar. And we can see how much of each ingredient, what proportion of each ingredient adults eat with their breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. So that's the information we have. And please note that in the topic, in the second sentence, they told us that all of these nutrients may be unhealthy if eaten too much. That means that we should analyze the numbers and decide which numbers are not high and are likely to be healthy, and which are too high and are likely to be unhealthy. When you write a task 1 report, it's really important to only use the information you are given, because perhaps you know that those ingredients, those nutrients are unhealthy, but you shouldn't mention it unless it's given in the task, like in our case. Okay, now let's talk about the essay structure. In order to achieve at least a band 7 for your essay, you must logically organize it. So let me show you a typical task 1 structure that you can use for any task 1 essay. You always start with an introduction. That's where you simply paraphrase the task. It's by far the easiest and quickest way to write it, and you don't need to include anything else here. Your introduction should be short. Then, an overview. That's perhaps the most important part of your task 1 report. That's where you provide this general summary of the main trends. You describe the broad picture, and the overview should be 1, 2, maybe 3 sentences long. Really not that much. And quite often, I don't include any numbers, any figures in the overview at all. Or you may include a couple of the most important ones, but really don't go into detail. Think, how could I describe all that in 1 sentence or 2 sentences? That's your overview. And you can write it in different places. It can go right after the introduction, and it can be in a separate paragraph, or it can actually be in the same paragraph with the introduction. It's up to you. You can also leave your overview until the end and write it after your body paragraphs. That's what I do quite often, but there is one danger. If you leave the overview until the end, and then you'll be running out of time and you don't finish it. That's a big problem because your task achievement score will suffer a lot. If you're running out of time, it's better not to finish your body paragraph than to skip your overview. And in this sense, it's simply safer to write it right after your introduction. Then we write body paragraphs. Sometimes we have 2, we may have 3. But you should have at least 2 because you need to show to the examiner that you can logically organize information and you're not gonna just write all the information in the same paragraph, okay? 2 or 3 body paragraphs. And then that's the part that causes a lot of confusion, but in task 1, you don't need a conclusion. A conclusion is what we write in task 2, where we summarize our ideas and give our opinion if the essay asks for it. But in task 1, we never give our opinion. And we don't really summarize our ideas either, right? We just summarize the information we're given. And that's what we call an overview. So an overview replaces the conclusion. And sometimes, because people write it at the end, you may look at the essay and think, oh, there is a conclusion in the essay. But no, you don't need one, trust me. Now let's have a look at our essay. Here is my introduction. The 3 pie charts give information about the proportion of sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar in the typical meals of UK adults. Excessive consumption of any of those nutrients is considered to negatively affect one's health. In my introduction, I simply paraphrased the task and we could compare them. The task says, the charts below, and I said, the 3 pie charts. I simply added some words. Show was replaced by give information about or provide information on. The average consumption of 3 nutrients. I replaced by information about the proportion of sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar. So I named those nutrients straight away. And then I added, in the typical meals. That's something I've taken from the charts. And the task said, adults in the UK, and I said, UK adults. I simply changed the order of words, but I repeated words. The second sentence was, all of these nutrients may be unhealthy if eaten too much. And I wrote, excessive consumption of any of those nutrients is considered to negatively affect one's health. As you can see, the idea is the same. And yes, you do need to paraphrase words. You shouldn't copy phrases from the task. But it doesn't mean that you have to replace every word. As you can see, I've repeated many of them. Consumption, nutrients, adults, health, and so on. And I will use those words a number of times throughout my report because these are key words of our task and you don't need to paraphrase them. If I wrote an overview after the introduction, it would be here, but mine is at the end. So let's talk about the body paragraphs. You need to logically organize information in your body paragraphs and you need to have at least 2. So what are the ways to split information into body paragraphs? In our task, I can see at least 2. The first way is to simply describe each chart in a separate body paragraph. That's the easier way. Then you would have 3 body paragraphs. We could also concentrate on describing each meal. Breakfast and all the nutrients consumed for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. But then we can't write 4 body paragraphs, right? Then we need to group similar data together. And I can see a way to do that. If you have a look at our charts, you can see that for breakfast and lunch, people don't eat too much of any of those nutrients. The proportions are quite low. And I would say that those meals can be considered healthy. But when eating dinner and snacks, People consume a lot of at least one of those nutrients, and that can be considered unhealthy. And describing breakfast and lunch in one body paragraph and describing dinner and snacks in the other body paragraph is a more advanced way to organize the essay because it shows that you can really analyze the information. But you can choose either of the ways. I'm going to choose the latter, and let's have a look at the first body paragraph. The first 2 meals of the day, breakfast and lunch, appear to be quite healthy with a relatively even distribution of nutrients. That's my topic sentence, and I've already told what I've learned about those 2 meals. Now I'm going to go into more detail. A typical breakfast is the lightest meal of the day, which contains between 13 and 16% of each nutrient. As you can see in the first part of the sentence, I make a claim. Breakfast is the lightest meal of the day. And then I provide some figures to support it. It contains between 13 and 16% of each nutrient. And it's important not to give too many details because I think it's not important to know which nutrient was 13% and which was 16%. There is no big difference there, and I simply give the range. Next, for lunch, people consume between 20 and 28% of the nutrients, with added sugar being the lowest and sodium the highest. So here the range is a bit wider, and I told which one is the lowest, which one is the highest, and we know that the third nutrient is somewhere in the middle, and again, it's not that important to know where exactly it is. I omitted this number. When you write your task 1 report, it's important to make some statement, make a claim, and then support it with your numbers. If you give too many details, it's problematic. But if you don't give any numbers at all, it's not good either. You need to strike the right balance. In order to achieve a higher score for my grammar, I'm varying my sentence structures. If you have a look at the second and third sentences, one is about breakfast, the second one is about lunch, but sentence structures are different. In the first one, I said, a typical breakfast is, and in the last one, for lunch, people consume. You see, these are different structures. And then I added some extra information to both of those sentences, but in a different way. In the sentence about breakfast, I said, the lightest meal of the day, which contains, and then gave the numbers. And in the last one, I said, with added sugar being the lowest. So again, these are different sentence structures. And even though my sentences are not very long, my sentence structures are complex. And that's what brings a higher score in your task 1. And actually in task 2 too. Let's read the second body paragraph. On the other hand, dinner and snacks appear to be less balanced. Out of all the meals, dinner contains the largest proportions of sodium and saturated fat, 42 and 39% of daily intake respectively. However, when snacking, people eat the most added sugar, 45%, as well as slightly more sodium and saturated fat than for breakfast. In the charts, you get a lot of information and a lot of different figures, and you need to choose the key features, the most important numbers, such as the highest numbers, and that's what I reported in this body paragraph. Also, in your task 1 as well as your task 2, you need to use a number of formal linking words and other linking devices, such as, on the other hand, out of all the meals, and however. Let me show you my overview. That's where I give this broad picture and explain what I've learned in 1 or 2 sentences. Overall, the first 2 meals of the day eaten by adults in the UK are relatively balanced and healthy, whereas dinner contains the most sodium and saturated fat. Most of the added sugar is in snack foods. Are you surprised to see this last word here, foods? Let me explain. When we talk about food in general, it's uncountable. But when we mean different kinds of it, it's countable. Foods. The phrase snack foods means different kinds of snacks. Okay, when you write your overview, give general trends. Don't give numbers or just a couple of numbers, and don't give any details. And if sometimes you run out of time before you finish both answers, write your overview right after the introduction to be on the safe side. Speaking about conclusions, you don't need one in Task 1 Academic. We write an overview instead of a conclusion. This essay is 198 words long. If you aim for Band 7, I would say your essay should be between 170 and 180 words long. In this case, you can finish it a little bit more quickly and have more time to check it, hopefully. Some people ask if they lose points for longer essays. If it's a beautifully written essay where everything is correct, no, you don't lose any points. You just have more space to develop your ideas. But if a longer essay means that you simply make more mistakes, then perhaps yes. Don't write an essay longer than you really need to. I know that you may have questions that we haven't touched on in this video, such as how to select the information for your report, which numbers to include and which not to include, which verb tenses to use in your essays, how to write essays on different types of tasks. I've described all that in my online course, Fastrack IELTS Academic Task 1, and I'm gonna link it in the description box below. If you are looking for more free materials, then feel free to download my Task 2 workbook in the PDF format and watch this other video with a sample answer for Task 2. Thank you for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!